Today, September 22nd, 2023. This is the OHDSI Phenotype Development Evaluation Workgroup meeting, the fourth Friday meeting. We have our meetings on the second Friday and the fourth Friday. We have a pretty light attendance today, so I'm going to skip through the OKRs and the progress that we make. I think we all know about it. This is the agenda. We informally talked about the agenda. This is the main
You're not
topic.
sharing yet, Beth.
Oh, thanks, Joe. Okay, so this is our agenda for today. We do have our main focus of the conversation is the OHDSI Phenotype Library and how often, and the experience that we had in the last 2 weeks or so, and then some conversation about the face-to-face meetings at the OHDSI Symposium. And I have some ideas for that I would like to reflect with the group. The other topics that are on the list, I have I would like to hear from Paul Nagy if he joins the call. In our last meeting, he had expressed interest to talk about it, but we just couldn't get to that. So if anybody sees Paul join the call, we'll just give him priority to describe. The publications, I think we can table it for now, and also the technical help, we can table those for now. That's these agenda items here. So this is what we want to focus on today, if we all agree. In terms of the phenotype library, I'll start out by saying a few things about the phenotype library. The phenotype library push, I think, really worked. We have populated the phenotype library by hundreds of cohorts in the last few days. Currently, the library has more than 1,000 cohort definitions that are cataloged and attributed with the forum posts and so on. Some of them have evaluations, and a few of them has been accepted to our peer review framework. Obviously, 99.9% of the cohort definitions have not been peer reviewed, but they're getting there. And but the good news is we now have developed an awareness of the OHDSI Phenotype Library among the community. In terms of its application, the reason for the push was the how often application. The how often is led by the Columbia University investigators, George Ripshak and Patrick Ryan, and some of us are helping out with that effort. The folks that are helping out includes Aza Shaibi and me and a few others. Chris Knoll is now implementing the technical framework for computation of this large-scale incidence rate. The various work groups contributed. The oncology work group, through RCS contribution via the OHDSI forums, have made it to the phenotype library. We haven't seen contribution from Darwin yet. There was a good conversation from VA Cipher. VA Cipher is a honest broker for definitions in the Department of Veterans Affairs research infrastructure. They support all researchers using any data model, including the VA's native model. They have not started supporting the OMAP-based or OHDSI-based researchers yet, but that's in their pipeline. And one of the discussions that we had, which was very exciting to me, was if VA researchers start using VA Cipher, they would then channel those to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. So that idea was very exciting to me. Essentially, that would mean that the VA researchers would use the VA Phenotype Library infrastructure natively, mediated by VA Cipher. So they're still thinking that through, but I felt very excited about that proposition, and Hayden, who attends this work group, brought up that idea and made the connection. So thank you, Hayden, for doing that, and much appreciated. In terms of N3C, we had a good conversation with N3C. If you all remember, we talked about the N3C proposal in the last work group call. We had discussed that N3Cs had a set of codeless or concept set expressions that they maintained, and they would like to contribute to the OHDSI Phenotype Library. That there were some gaps there. The gaps were the OHDSI Phenotype Library is a repository of cohort definitions, but not codeless or concept sets. And that's based on the premise that a phenotype is a potentially changeable state of a person. And so we need logic that not only represents codes, but also temporal relationships. So basically saying, when does the phenotype start and when does the phenotype end? In other words, it has to materialize into a cohort table. The N3C contribution did not align with that, and so we had some gaps, but the work group's feedback was that it's still valuable. The concept sets are still valuable, the code lists are still valuable, and we need to try to help the community members innovate in new ideas. And so we did have a conversation with them, and that I think landed at a certain place that that we could work with. Ben, you wanted to reflect on your what you learned or heard in that conversation. You want to say
I
something?
think there were some reservations that people were having about the N3C adding to the phenotype library, but it sounded like they really were essentially developing phenotypes, just maybe not quite compatible with the library. But
Yep.
It didn't seem like insurmountable in terms of the barriers to inclusion.
Yeah, exactly. So we agreed to a place where we would use approach where the contributions of N3Cs would be converted to cohort definitions. They would contribute about 90 to 100 concept sets, or basically it's OHDSI Atlas Web API compatible concept set expressions. We will then convert them into cohort definitions using a template-based approach. We still have to think about what the best template is, but we'll convert that into a template. And once that template has been converted, we will import those cohort definitions with the embedded concept sets into the OHDSI Phenotype Library. And that way, N3C work will be in the OHDSI Phenotype Library.
So what are you thinking? You're thinking they're just going to be the phenotype, the cohort definition template is just going to be first occurrence, and then the concept set?
Yeah, I'm going to think
No
about
look
it a
back.
little bit more. It depends upon the domain. It depends upon the clinical idea. We may go and create few templates and build on top of those templates. I have to see what those concept sets are. So we divided the work into two two main groups of work. The first group had 7 steps and the third group had 3 steps. The first groups of 7 steps was on N3C, and the second group of 3 steps was on me. I want to see when they come to step number 4, I think I'll have enough clarity to think about the template.
And so we don't want to go the route of like what we do with Atlas, storing both cohorts and concept sets.
The current infrastructure of the OHDSI Phenotype Library is centered around cohort definitions. We do not have anything for concept sets. You are welcome to create one.
Well, I mean, it's an idea, right? I mean, instead of just putting out cohorts that, I don't know. I guess for me, I see a lot of value in having a library of concept sets that you can then build your cohort from.
Yeah, I agree. I think that was one of the issues of the ability to decrease variation, is these are validated. I mean, the concept set composition is really critical to that sort of core definition. So I see it as an evolutionary step.
Yeah, its concept sets are definitely good building blocks for cohort definitions. And we need a solution
just in the measurement
for
space. Like we have very static concept sets that are iterated over time.
Yep.
As the terminologies underneath them are updated, but we're very restrictive in terms of changes to those, or inclusion or exclusion of those specific concept sets in terms of our definitions. So
yeah. Now you can also think about it in a two-step way. You could expose the concept set, and there is the OHDSI Phenotype Library. I didn't switch it on yet, but the OHDSI Phenotype Library can expose concept sets that are in all the cohort definitions and assign them unique IDs. So if a concept set is identical across cohort definitions, it will flag it as such and assign it a unique ID and a name and so on and so forth. So it is possible to go from a cohort definition to a concept set and make that available to the community. So you can always get the concept set that's in a cohort definition as a standalone object and then build your new cohort definitions from it.
Right, but you have to, I mean, so that would involve, I'm guessing that would involve taking down the JSON for the cohort, bringing it into a local atlas, taking out the concept set, creating or either altering the cohort in place or creating a new cohort and placing that in there.
Yeah, and what you're talking about, Joel, is just the technical steps that
Yeah.
go amount to it, but
Right.
you don't need to break it down and think about it as having to go through 6 steps. It can be just 1 step. It's all programmable. The idea, conceptually, the idea is what is the unit and what is the metadata around the unit. Once you have those, that's where the value proposition is. The process of extracting and then extracting from one place and putting it in another place, that's just a program, right? That's not really human things. What we are really interested in is, has a human being made a thoughtful effort, a fully thought out effort while building this logic? And if they made some choices, why did they make those choices? And what is the impact of those choices? As long as that meta information is exposed, the consumer of it can make the choice whether they like it or not, that they like it in the terms that they have confidence that if they use that in their study, it will produce reliable evidence. That's what we want to enable. We want to enable people to generate reliable evidence by using well thought out, well evaluated building objects. And as of right now, the infrastructure is centered around cohort definitions, and those cohort definitions is capturing the meta information. That's the forum posts and fee evaluator, for example, is giving performance characteristics. They're not giving, but we don't have performance characteristics for concept sets. Right. We don't have empirical ways of saying this.
I mean, we do though, Gautam, because a lot of the concept sets, the value sets in the VSEC, for example, have intentional definitions for each of them, right? So there is it's so similar to like how a cohort's defined. It's like what's included, what's not excluded, and for what reasons is a very sort of standard definition for that particular set. And that might have that's sort of the next step in terms of improving the metadata around the appropriateness for use of that particular concept set in that phenotype definition. And so basically what we need is our concept sets, which I think is very similar to kind of how N3C approached it, was essentially that same way of like sort of intentional definitions for each of their concept sets that have all that relativity and the inclusion, exclusion reasons, rationale, that then is attached to that particular set, which you can then reference from repositories.
Yeah. So let's, Ben, I'm fully supportive of making a repository of concept set. And there is already.
Well, I don't think we should make a repository. I mean, again, I don't think we should duplicate things that are already being done. I think we just need to set the requirements for what information is needed with a concept set to make sure that you're using the right one in your cohort definition.
Exactly. So let me rephrase. I'm fully open to a library of concept set expressions that can be used as a building blocks for a phenotype or a cohort definition. What needs to be captured in it? What needs to be? What's the metadata around it? How and all those stuff needs to be thought through. And we need a work group or a group of people to work on it right now. In terms of
happy to volunteer for that group.
Yep. Actually, the group has to be formed and has to be led by somebody. So if you Ben, if you want to if you want to do that, you're welcome to. as of right now, there's no.
Yeah, I
work
think this is where we have to again engage one of the terminology side people to probably lead it, because I don't like to intrude on their domain, but I think it should be heavily informed by the phenotype group, in particular because we have the relevant use case.
Yeah.
Okay. The other advantage that I see from having concept sets is that, you know, a large part of the rest of the world just thinks of it as code lists. And if you look at ICB, there was whole seminars on code lists. So this might make it a little more palatable for folks outside OHDSI to use OHDSI tools and get more involved with OHDSI. It's like, oh, okay, they have code lists that we can just pull. So they can go to the phenotype library and pull out a code list, which is our concept set. And it's like, oh, okay, what else does OHDSI do?
Yeah, it's like the OHDSI gateway drug.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I mean, that's
because really, you know, the natural next step is to actually think, oh, well, I actually can't define a group of people using just this.
Right.
You know, and that pulls them towards, you know, thinking about cohorts in the way that OHDSI does.
Yeah.
Okay. So I have in the OHDSI Phenotype Library right now only cohort definitions are exposed. I have software in it that allows the exposure of concept sets that are in the cohort definitions.
Right.
And
but you actually suck them out, right, into its own. Don't you suck the concept set out into its own JSON? No.
There is so technically, just like there is a cohort definition set object, there will be a concept set definition object. And that object will just be one row for every unique concept set expression in any of the cohort definition in the OHDSI Phenotype Library.
And that row contains the JSON.
It will have the JSON and the SQL for the expression.
Right.
It won't have the resolved set. The resolved set depends upon the vocabulary. So, and the resolved set is bulky because some concept sets resolves to thousands of codes. So creating a table with that is not available. That will be available as data.ohdsi.org/phenotype library application, but it won't be available inside the GitHub repository of phenotype library just because it's just huge file sizes. You know, it's basically downloading the full vocabulary table.
So how would people do that? Because that's the other logical thing that people outside of OHDSI or new to OHDSI would want to look at. They see a concept set with all these SNOMED codes, and they want to see what the ICD-9 essentially 10 equivalents are.
Yeah. So that just will need some sort of a shiny tool that's connected to a Postgres server, and it just runs the SQL. As somebody selects a concept set and wants to look at the codes associated with it, they just need to it'll be, you know, it's a live connection. So select the concept set expression, and it'll give you the resolved code list.
In the near term, can't they just plug it into Atlas?
You what?
In the near term, can't they just plug it into Atlas? I mean, it would work now. Yeah.
Yeah. So because these tools are all interconnected, you know, like they're not interconnected. What is it? They're compatible with each other. It shouldn't be a problem. Like here, when this loads, so there's this near concept set. So this is the concept set expression, right? Now, this one has an SQL that's embedded in it, and that SQL is essentially like this part here. Okay, and that SQL can be run on a vocabulary table, and when you run it, you get this resolved code list. And this resolved code list, you'll also get the mapped code list. And this, what you're getting right now, is a live query. This full result set is not saved in the library. It's just SQL running real time and returning results. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So it's So this is hitting this. Where are you at here? Is this within Jansen or is this Odyssey?
This is Odyssey. So it's running real time and returning results. So you've got an expression. This expression, dyspnea, is stored is in the phenotype library. So if somebody pulls up the dyspnea concept set, they can not only see the concept set expression in table format, they can also see its JSON. There's a tab that's missing here, but you can always add it. They can see that SQL, which I showed you, that's here, this SQL. They can see the resolved set. They can see mapped set. So that and it'll be exportable. You can put that into tables, Excels, whatever you want. And you can filter by different vocabulary, but that is easy to expose. That's already there.
So, but you do suck out the concept set and put that in a separate area, a separate table. So you have a concept set table along with the cohort table.
A concept set expression table, yes.
A concept set expression table, which is the JSON, which is essentially the concept set.
The concept set expression will have things like it's going to be similar to this. Why do that here? So I'm going to show you a cohorts table, but let's just use this as an exemplar, and I'll just copy this just to show you. And there will be a table in the library called concept sets,
which is already there.
It's not there right now. I told you that it's not exposed.
Oh, it's not exposed, but it's already in the database schema.
There's no database schema for the library, Joe. This is a repository of definitions.
Yeah, right.
You're mixing
Yeah.
Cohort diagnostics with phenotype library. All right. So I'm just right. So here is how it's going to look like. Unique concept set ID. Cohort no. Concept set name. Concept set expression. Concept set SQL. Metadata. Domain. Condition. I don't even have to do that. Uses condition. Has condition concepts. Has procedure concepts. Has so on and so forth. Has other.
Yeah.
Has number of concepts. Number of has non-standard. Has invalid. Has whatever. But I think you're beginning to get the message.
Yeah.
So these are all metadata, right? They're basically you pass. When we look at this expression, this one has 3 concept IDs. Now in the library, let's say this is dyspnea concept set. We give this a unique ID, whatever that ID is. If dyspnea is reused across 5 cohort definitions, it will be represented only once because it's unique. Now this is the JSON. That's the SQL. Now this one will be true for has condition, but 0 for procedure because this is a condition domain concept ID. Now some concept set expressions would have more than one domains, and in that case, this might become 0 and 1, for example. But here, this is a 0, 1, and 0. So you can use this as a filter to do that. You can also add has observation, has measurement, has device, has blah, blah, blah. The number of concepts in this case would be 3 because it has 1, 2, and 3. As non-standard, this would be a false because this has only standard. And this one has no invalid. So it has valid, but has, I'll say, as invalid 0. Something like this. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
So we'll have a repository of all these stuff. This whole thing is computer generated. It's metadata that's computer. No human being has given this. It just allows you to filter and toggle and so on. This is the actual definition. This is the only thing that a human being has given right now, which is a name for it. We don't know why somebody made the choice for including difficulty breathing or abnormal breathing as part of dyspnea. Now, as clinicians, we can make a guess about why they made that choice because it semantically it makes sense, but we don't know what the thinking was because it's not documented anywhere. We also don't know why BOG breathlessness score has been excluded. Right? But that's meta information that somebody has to contribute to say, I made these choices because of these reasons, so that somebody else can say, I like those choices. Okay. So a library of concept sets should enable these types of documentation as to why these design choices were made. The current exposing this, that's a switch. I can do it in the next release. And I can create a table just like this table here. This table has all the core definitions in the OHDSI Phenotype Library, and it has 1,000 plus rows, I think. That says 879, that's fine. It has 879 definitions, right? OHDSI Phenotype Library is 879 definitions, but you can see the fields that are part of this library. And so many of these are meta information. So you have cohort ID and name, those things, names, that's just the name. Let's bring this to actually, it might be easier if I do it this way. Okay, so give an example. All right, so this is an example of one of the cohorts. The cohort ID, cohort name long are just 3 ways to represent the same name. There's a librarian, there's a status, whether it is pending peer reviews, has completed a peer review, or it was administratively withdrawn, whatever. There's a logic description field. There is a hashtag field that allows you to Twitter-like group definitions. It tells you whether this is a Atlas Web API compatible cohort JSON, or is it like just a pure SQL cohort. Tells you about who contributed it. So the contributor's meta information. If you have any questions, ask the contributor. If somebody does a peer review, there's the peer reviewer's information. There is the OHDSI forum post. So you can link back and look at the conversations between people. This is just a way to, this is concept IDs that allows you to group similar definitions, meta information about when this was created, and all of this from 18 to the end are machine generated metadata. So this is not human contribution. This is just a CERC JSON being parsed. So like sensor window start date, sensor window end date. Like if there is in Atlas, if there is a sensor window, like what is the collapse logic for it? What's the exit strategy? How many inclusion rules does it have? What is the qualifying limit? So on and so forth. This is all stuff from Atlas. What domains does it use? So on and so forth. So this is meta information that is available, just allows you to filter these definitions. But the point I'm trying to make here is a concept set repository will have to collect not only concept sets, but also machine and human generated concept sets, metadata.
Okay.
And then only when then will it be valuable. The machine generated concept set metadata, that's available. I can expose that in the OHDSI Phenotype Library. I just don't have a mechanism to capture people's reasoning for making those choices.
Yeah, and you don't have that in the for the cohort either.
We do. That's why we have the OHDSI forum post. That's where you're expected to put
Okay.
it.
Well, I mean,
Like-
if you're okay if we're okay with putting it in the OHDSI forum post for cohorts, you can do the same thing for concept sets.
That's right. So we need somebody to take that on and do that for concept sets, because the if it's of really of value.
How would maybe can you walk me through? I mean, Ben kind of brought up a point there earlier about, you know, their concept sets are relatively stable but do undergo iteration with changes in vocabulary and whatnot.
Yep.
In exposing concept sets, we expose those as, you know, as things that would possibly change and iterate. Like how would the versioning work of a cohort that consumes concept sets when the concept sets change? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. So your so let's think about it. Let's break down into components. There is the cohort definition. There is a cohort. Cohort definition is just the JSON, right? If the JSON changes, then the version changes.
okay.
If the JSON doesn't change, then it's the same.
Yeah.
Now, when you execute the
it's
JSON as an
specific to it's a little specific to the terminologies too, because the terminologies update within the concept sets, and that's why they're sort of like, I don't expect the cohort definitions to change much unless, you know, the major guideline change or there's some other reason that you know, or someone reevaluated it and redid it. But the terminologies change all the time. I mean, they go under annual update every single year at different schedules, and so that's why we have to sort of fix our value set, concept set definitions, and, you know, make sure that the codes get updated as the codes get updated within each domain of terminology update kind of thing. So that's why it's kind of unique to concept sets, I think, in terms of updates, where I don't think the cohort definitions will have that same problem, except the fact that they're going to have to reference these concept sets that get updated kind of sporadically over the year, and could influence changes within the definition.
Right, but you don't want to. You can't. I don't think you can update the cohort definitions with new concept sets if you just update the concept set. If you add a new code to the concept set, if you have a version of the cohort definition and now the underlying concept set has been changed, I think the cohort definition needs to stay static.
Yeah, that's right. So
I would agree. I would agree.
So one of the designs in OHDSI is the separation of the concept set from the cohort definition, and that was intentionally done. Okay. If you look at the cohort JSON, I'm just pulling up an Atlas instance here. I'm going to pull up something like appendicitis. So this one has this concept set. This concept set, if you look at the JSON, this is the JSON of the cohort definition. This is a fully encapsulated expression. Inside this is the full concept set embedded inside the cohort definition. And in other words, it is not dependent on this module here of Atlas of concept sets. There is no linkage between this and that. And that was intentional and purposeful because now the cohort definition is completely encapsulated and is immune to changes to concept set. It is so immune that it also has this meta information of the concept ID. It is taking the name of the concept set name, the domain, standard concept, and so on inside the cohort definition. So if the vocabulary version changes, and all of a sudden decides to call this instead of appendicitis bloody finger, this cohort definition would never know about it because it's encapsulated. And
that's by design, because
that's by design.
If you use that cohort definition in a study, you know, you don't want it, you know, 2 years later, you don't want to have somebody try to pull that up and see that oh, you put bloody finger in there? That's crazy.
Yep. That's right.
Well,
so because
it's mostly relevant in our cases where we have long look back periods, like we're looking back 10 years for data, because the code that was used in the data 10 years ago, you know, it's not going to get updated like the terminology is. So
that's right.
Yeah.
And that's by design, and that's why the OHDSI Phenotype Library is also designed that way to keep it fully encapsulated. And if the vocabulary suddenly changes, it does not change. It stays static. Now, like to Joel's point, if we create a repository of concept sets and then a repository of cohort definitions, there is no linkage between the two because they're completely independent things.
Yeah.
So if you update one, the other does not get updated automatically. So by creating two things, we can create two things, two bodies of objects, but they should be independent of each other. And if you don't, but if you and it actually be explicit. If you implicitly think that updating concept set will automatically update core definitions, no, that's not going to happen. Right? And so it becomes maintenance nightmare.
Nor should it be an automatic update for the reasons I just expressed, is you don't necessarily want it that way.
We don't want it that way. That's right.
Your definition references the exact concept set that you mean it to reference, which mean there are some similarities to them, but again, you don't want them just automatically updating because you'll never know what you're going to get. You're
That's
going to
right.
get wildly variable results.
I mean,
right.
it could update as long as it's versioned. Like you just would need to know what version was used at what,
Right.
Like I see a use case of having them. I see a use case of having them update because otherwise, I guess that's is that going to be a manual process of redoing the cohort definition with the new concept set as those things change? I mean, that's fair and that can be so, and then you kind of resubmit it as another version. You know what I mean? Like,
yep.
I think the maintenance nightmare.
Yeah.
It could equally be cast the other way, where when you make changes in concept sets, there is now a needed manual effort to create cohorts from those concept sets again and resubmit them on a forum post.
Yeah.
And and re-import them into the library. Like I actually think there's you can make a case for something that
I'll give you a real example here. This was somebody posted here. I do not know this person, but I'm appreciative of them for this example. They basically did 17 hours ago. They said, I'm not sure if this was changed in newer version, but want to mention that phenotypes 551 and 676 are defined with non-standard concepts, but it was being used as a standard concept. So I'll show you what that was. And I've updated this, but I'm going to revert it and I'm going to show you what this is. So this was the old version. So this was the definition. This was a microcephaly, and it says it looks like a very simple definition. A condition occurrence of microcephaly, using it as a standard code, and for the first time in person's history, and so on and so forth. Simple code definition. Fine. Now I'm going to click this concept set expression, and oh, this is a non-standard code. Wait a minute. A non-standard code is being used as as in a query that's looking on the standard field of the condition occurrence table. So if you look at the SQL, it is basically saying condition concept ID equals to the resolved set of microcephaly concept set expression. That's going to give you 0 results because this is a non-standard code, and this non-standard code should not be in the field called condition concept ID. It should be in the field called condition source concept ID. We are not querying condition source concept ID because we do not have a query. This is not built on this field, condition source concept. Now, why did this happen? Well, in an older version of the OHDSI vocabulary, OMA vocabulary, microcephaly was a standard code. Now it's not. It was replaced by this one. They migrated to this one, made this one standard, and made it an observation domain. So it not only changed domains. Actually, this is not even a valid definition because I have to change it to this way because I didn't realize that it was in observation domain. So they changed domain. The microcephaly, which was in the condition domain, became non-standard and was superseded by an observation domain of microcephalus.
Yeah, so that wasn't even a non-standard. That wasn't even like an ICD-10 code. It just changed to non-standard because now not even there anymore, I guess.
Exactly. So yes, to answer your question, Evan, this is how the maintenance is. Somebody says, and now in the next version, you will see differences. And, because it's version control in Git, you can track deltas between versions.
That's.
But this is your example.
Yep.
So,
yeah, I mean, well, I guess the example I was thinking, like, let's say you knew, like, taking Ben's kind of, Ben's use case, where you are actually iterating concept sets, purposefully, in response to changes in the terminologies.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the question is there a potential mechanism where the cohorts that consume those concept sets would be, could be automatically iterated, but just clearly versioned? You know what I mean? As opposed to having to rebuild every cohort that might consume that, new concept set and resubmit it, right? And put a forum, like, as of right now, that involves putting a forum post together, sending it to you. Like, I guess I'm a little bit.
So yeah, I'll try to answer your question. There are people in the community who are doing research on this. What they're doing is doing something like this. They are keeping track of, say, the output of the phenotype library or whatever, or maybe their local instance of instantiated cohorts. And they're looking at something simple like cohort counts. So imagine if the cohort count of this data source was 41,000 today, but in the next release drops down to 20,000. Right? So they keep track of changes to it. And when there is a dramatic change above a certain threshold, they trigger workflows. Right? So that's the empirical way to keep track of it, that the idea is floating around that way. And that's the, you look at it from impact perspective. If the change did not make any impact, as evidenced by not only counts, but maybe even the characteristics of the population. We keep track of average age. We have feature extraction output. We know their demographics. We know their condition baseline. We know their procedures, pre and post, and so on and so forth. And if those change over a certain threshold, statistically, it triggers a workflow.
And so it essentially, which is the way it should be, it's the responsibility of the specifying authority to track all of these things. And we do this through elaborate version controls, and we have cross-reference tables of, what concept sets are used for what definitions and vice versa, and blah, blah, blah. And it's all, done, well, still, unfortunately, mostly Excel, but we've got, these management services that do all this for us. But it really does, it is still manual. It is still up to the authority to say, this is a breaking change, and this, we need to reevaluate the core definition. And unfortunately, there's no sort of, easy standard or replacement for that current process. And it is up to the community of the owners to sort of assert that.
And that's why every core definition now has, in the OHDSI Phenotype Library, has an owner associated with it, which is the contributor person. And that person would be responsible for the integrity of the core definition.
Yeah. I mean, the thing that concerned me, just going through this example, is that if I had used microcephaly in a paper in 2 years ago, and I put in the paper the reference to the OHDSI Phenotype Library version of microcephaly, and now somebody goes, okay, now it looks at that reference and now sees the concept set associated with it, and it has non-standard code in there. Whereas before, at the time of use, it was a standard code.
So you are referencing version 3. Let's say, let's talk through this. There's the OHDSI Phenotype Library is currently in version 3.2.0. 3.20. Let's say you used version 3.11. If you go to, so you will give, so all of these versions have a DOI or permanent ID associated with it, and you are at, let's say, version this release or whatever that release was. I just made the number up. Okay, this release. So this release is what you're going to reference. If you look at this release, and there's a way to expose this, I think here. If you look at this release and you browse the files, blah blah something, some way, there it is. When you reference this release, and that's the permanent link of it in your paper, it will, when you look at the JSON, it will say microcephaly, and it will say standard. Okay, so at that time, at the timestamp of your study execution, this was a standard.
Right.
What happened in the future was not under your control, so you have something to defend on.
Yeah, I mean, I see what you're saying, and that does work, but that means that the link I put in my paper 2 years ago has to somehow include the OHDSI Phenotype Library version.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Everything has to be versioned, and that's on you, Joel. I
understand, but that's okay. But that's not intuitively obvious that you need to, if I'm pulling up Phenotype Library and I have a, well, I guess I'm gonna have, I can click on a link to a cohort definition, and there's going to be a link up there, and I could just copy that link and go, but that's not going to have the OHDSI, the Phenotype Library version in it. Yeah, but that's the whole idea of versioning. Here is the version. The version is maintained in this one. The main page has the latest version, and the releases are always here. That's standard community practice and industry practice. Well, I mean, it is, but I mean, the OHDSI Phenotype Library, yes, is a piece of software, but it's also a repository of data. Sure. And for repositories of data, you don't necessarily always, it doesn't always make logical sense to have that you have to require the version of the software system that was managing the repository at the time. Because you embed the issue is you embed the data in with the software version. So what you're bringing up, Joel, is good and fair. What you're saying is, I have a problem. I see there is a solution. I don't think that solution is easy enough for me. But I think the point that I'm emphasizing is you have a solution. It's not convenient. Yeah, I understand. It's just that there should be, and I don't disagree that there's a solution there, but there needs to be some awareness of somebody who's using the Phenotype Library and sucking it out and using a cohort definition in a study and then referencing it in their paper, that they need to also include the reference to the. Yeah, so one of the gaps that we need to complete is the paper on the OHDSI Phenotype Library itself, and those needs to capture all these ideas. I have a stub paper already that I've not had time to finish up, but here's the invitation to the community that was posted June 9th. And where is the paper's link? Okay, a draft of the paper has been posted on the Microsoft Teams tenant. And this is the paper. I have the spreadsheet here that asks for co-authors to put their name in. I want this to be a brief communication, and it has the ideas that we just talked about. And we can also add a section that talks about usage. So it has most pieces of information that we talked about. We can add usage here, usage and referencing. There's one more idea. Remember, the OHDSI Phenotype Library is still in its infancy. We still have not had one network study use the OHDSI Phenotype Library yet. How often is the first time it's being used? So we're still gaining experience. So this problem that you are saying is nobody has experienced it, but it's theoretical. But but it's going to happen. It's going to happen. I agree. So we are creating, based on our prior experiences, best practices for the community.
And this paper, I invite you all to collaborate. Imagine this: if this OHDSI Phenotype Library really kicks off, every OHDSI study that uses a code definition would be referencing this paper.
So would it be fair to say that all the definitions within the library inherit the version
Yes.
of the library?
Yes.
Okay.
Every version will have a copy of the definitions as of that version.
Right. So, I mean, I think I agree with both of you. Like, I think it's a solution. I can see where, I can see where cognitively the issue is, right? Because you might not have changed that version at all, but you have really no choice but to kind of stamp it with the version of the library. And so it's not clear whether or not that particular cohort definition would have changed in, as the library is updated. Like, you can't tell.
Yeah, so that's
there's no version number for that particular thing.
Yeah,
but like it still can work, and so I think going forward with something that can work is a totally reasonable move.
Yeah, so one of the ideas that I have is for like next Phenotype February, for example, not instead of just spinning our wheels, developing and evaluating core definitions, let's think about toolings that are built on top of the Phenotype Library. So imagine a challenge to the community where you just saw now core definition 567 evolve. Evolve because I changed. I'm the contributor for it, so I get to change it. I own it, and I need to maintain it. I changed the definition by changing the code set, right? We don't have a visualization tool for it. So one challenge for a Phenotype February is for a community tool developer, maybe a HDSI developer, to develop a visualization tool that says, given a core definition, give me its story over multiple versions of the library, right? And they may get secure funding for it, and so on. This is one example of a tooling. This is independently built by Paul Nagy and his group, but it's basically sucking the definitions from the Phenotype Library GitHub repository, and he developed a medium for it. It's broken now. He needs to fix it, but it was working at one point in time. It allowed you to navigate. You could select like hashtags if you want FDA definitions and so on. You could do that and so on. But that's just an example of an application. That application could include not just definitions that are in the library, but also, like we talked about, deltas in cohort table counts, characteristics of the populations, so on and so forth. There's lots of ideas and research opportunities that they can work on.
Very interesting. Great to think through.
Yeah, lots of cool informatics opportunities, I think. But in terms of going back to the N3C, I think putting the N3C is a good idea. I think if N3C definition concept sets go as cohorts, those concept sets will be exposed using the structure that we just talked about. I can do that in the next release. This is not a major ask. I just have to switch on that. I have a package in the OHDSI called Concept Set Diagnostics that does all these things, that parses a cohort definition and gives details of all the concept sets inside the cohort definition. And exposing that and integrating that in the Phenotype Library is a reasonable thing to do. But what I don't have is the ability to capture metadata, human-given metadata. I have the ability to capture machine-generated metadata. I don't have human-driven metadata at the concept set level. I have infrastructure for cohort level. However, to Joel's point, nobody is stopping once you expose the concept sets. Nobody is stopping putting a forum post and says, I'm going to comment on concept set ID 1 in the OHDSI Phenotype Library. right? And fine. Which basically solves the thing. Like if so if in the workflow we have N3C concept set, let's say N3C provided a concept set for deep vein thrombosis. We create a templated cohort definition for N3C concept set for deep venous thrombosis. We have a deep venous thrombosis N3C cohort definition. This is now extracted into a log of concept sets in the OHDSI Phenotype Library like this. And now that concept set, deep vein thrombosis, gets a unique ID in the OHDSI Phenotype Library. That unique ID is fully referenceable, version controlled, and somebody can make a discussion thread on the OHDSI forums for it and reference it. And so it's kind of solves, I think, the need for a concept set expression repository. And then once now it is extracted and an independent object, it's not only referenceable, you can build another core definition from it. And now you can cycle through concept set to cohorts, cohorts to concept set, so on and so forth. That I think we may have solved that need right now.
I think it'll work. You know, like like you said, I think sometimes we just next step is to use it a few times.
Yes.
And then figure out. Yeah, because you could spend a lot of time.
Yeah.
Re-engineering it now, but.
Yeah, so there was another. So I think we beat this topic to its death. We are over our time, but I wanted to talk about an important topic. The important topic is for the OHDSI Symposium. I did a forum post about ideas, basically encouraging people to write papers. Right? Mm-hmm. We want to write papers that where they not only phenotype, they comment about the phenotype. No, we want them to write papers basically talking about the insights of about the cohorts. And this could be background rate, it could be baseline characteristics, it could be treatment pathways, it could be anything. Any cohort definition inside the OHDSI Phenotype Library is fair game. And we can provide pre-computed results for it. But we need leads. And what I got yesterday is the number of participants who enrolled who signed up to come to the OHDSI Phenotype Library's workgroup meeting. And that is pretty much half the symposium attendees.
Good for you.
It's the longest list. I was thinking of sending personal emails to everybody who signed up, asking if they're interested in leading a paper and asking them to look at the OHDSI Phenotype Library and pick definitions. Andrea, you're not getting to pick. You're going to get anaphylaxis.
That seems totally fair.
But here's an idea that I was thinking about this morning. We can not only do that, but we can also talk about impact of variations of the definitions. Like Andrea, Evan, we saw that we can define anaphylaxis 10 different ways, and some of them may be better than the other. We're not 100% sure, but we know we can learn from the data what the impact of individual choices are. So, like we saw that the rates of inpatient, outpatient can change, rates of drugs dispensations can change, patient based demographic profiles can change, and it may be telling us something, and we're guessing based on those. We can also talk about various other things. So essentially, the paper the OHDSI Phenotype Library has several flavors of anaphylaxis definitions. You're welcome to use all of them and talk about differences between those, and that's useful. And we also work together on a narrative, in a rough draft before, which was about how we believe that the use of just the code of anaphylaxis is to justify an anaphylaxis treatment plan. And this could be even for persons who have never experienced anaphylaxis but have some severe allergy. Like dispensation of an EpiPen for a person who has allergies.
Hmm.
They've not had anaphylaxis yet, but they suspect that they might have an anaphylaxis. So to prevent them from, a catastrophic situation, their parents or their provider would want to keep anaphylaxis in reach. And for that, we think they're using the code anaphylaxis. So that's the story that we can tell. So that way. So basically, the idea is I want to send a personalized email to as many people as I can, asking them to volunteer. But in return, I want a commitment from them that they will within a certain defined time frame work towards a paper.
Geldem, I can say the HIE paper is in flight right now. Like we're working on it.
Mhm.
The aortic diseases I have to pick up again, and then we'll be kind of constructing something around major non-cardiac surgery in kind of advance of the symposium. So, I mean, it'd be nice to get there with some examples.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, and I mean, the time. I mean, we don't have a ton of time before the symposium. That's going to go quick, but
Yep.
we'll see how close we can get on at least a couple of those, so that we have some fleshed out. Things that are kind of fleshed out as like, here's an example of what these. Like, I guess we have a few out there, right? That there's a few out there already. It'd be nice to kind of put some in front of people that kind of
Yes.
that are the archetype.
Yes.
Paper.
Yes. In a previous meeting, Joel volunteered to talk about SLE as a archetype.
Right.
I think, Andrea, if you have time to make progress on anaphylaxis, you could share your progress as an experience in the work group for 15-20 minutes. Since you're there.
Yeah. Let me think about that. I think that hopefully time on site there will allow the breathing room to make a little more progress.
Yeah. No, I hear you. But what do you think of this idea, like opening up to the community and saying, hey, you got resources here, we'll get support, but as long as you commit to, in a time-bound way, to make progress on a publication as the lead.
I guess the question is how that support is structured and actually enabled, because that's actually not an easy nut to crack all the time.
No, it's not.
By support.
Well, you're getting the support.
Like how much in terms of the figures and that kind of stuff is is kind of packaged and ready to go.
Yeah, the support you're getting the code base, right, for execution. You're getting the definitions are in the library. You're getting the packages for incidence rate, code diagnostics, everything run. Most of it would be run in data networks that volunteer, right? And the results will be available on data.odyssey. So that will be managed. So essentially, pre-computed result set would be available in a tool. If you need custom visualizations and custom data extracts, that's something we could do together. That's a one-hop basis, like it's not part of the standard package, but that's something doable. But we can have a standard package that basically takes all the definitions that people are interested in, pre-compute it, make it available on data.odyssey.org kind of thing. Plus custom as needed by the study specific stuff. Then in terms of interpretation, that's like we set up interpretation calls like we all did. Like Evan, you and Evan, Andre, and I, we just talked through anaphylaxis. And we have to see what story we can tell from the data that we see, right? And one person has to write it, and that's the lead. That's up to the lead, right? Yeah. And that's why the lead has to do the main work of writing the convincing argument. Of the insight in a structured way, and the collaborators help out in that. So like Aza and I can definitely help with that content of of narration. And in terms of following through in the publication, once it creates a certain structure, maybe, and I'm thinking most of this will be like brief communications. I don't think it's a full-blown 5,000 word paper, like 2,000 words. We do a brief communication and we go through submissions. And it has to be done in a time-bound way. And if it's like 3 to 6 months time range. And I think it's feasible to do it once you get the pre-computer result set. The expectation is 3 to 6 months. And I think one agreement we could do is, like, if you don't do it within a certain time point, we hand it off to somebody else. You must be willing to hand off your work because you didn't follow through. It's a community effort. Although you're the lead, can't be squatting on it, kind of thing. But those are like stuff that has to be explicit and agreed upon for it to work. Those are just my thinking. Well,
yeah. I think there's legitimate. There are some there's kind of some activation energy and some barriers that we have to work through for sure. But no, I agree. It would be great to get a point where we can start turning the crank on these.
Yeah. We have the infrastructure in place. We just need to get it going. If even the energy that is put on OHDSI forums, if that gets channeled to peer-reviewed scientific papers, we can get papers out.
Yeah, totally.
All right.
Cool. All right.
And I got you signed up, Evan. So
I'm signed up.
you're making progress, but do you have something that you want to take ownership on and call it for the symposium?
Yeah, well, I guess so aortic diseases for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll be working on that in advance of the symposium. I think we'll be able to get it pretty close. There's some cohort subsetting work that I like to do with Jamie Gilbert in cohort diagnostics, just because I think it would be a nice demo of that functionality, but also be really useful for the cohort itself. HIE, I'll touch base with Kaiser and see where we're at. There was that. There was kind of the hope that we would put out a bit more of a custom version of cohort diagnostics, like a neonatal specific, or one that has more attributes that are of interest in neonatal timelines. I think we've talked about that, and I know you kind of pointed me to where that's configured in cohort diagnostics. So that yeah, so part of the challenge is that a couple of them have some additional kind of cohort diagnostics work that aren't just kind of out of the box. But then the one that I would, has been on the plate for a while and would really kind of work well with the work group to get it moved forward would be major non-cardiac surgery.
Yep.
So I'll rebuild the stuff that was in COVID-19 Atlas. Like, I don't see a path to getting it back, which is too bad because it was like 50 cohort definitions like that were just cohorts as some of them were cohorts as features. And so if part of the run of how often includes cohort diagnostics on some of those, then like that could be kind of a working example. And I've already kind of got a chunk of that paper written. And so that could be kind of a working example, kind of live of what it, that would be the, like I'd be willing to try that, trying to make progress on one live in the symposium and see how far we can get.
Yeah. Okay. So can I ask you this? This is I'm going to post the link to the forum page. That's just put those. So I need two things from you. I need somebody to role model how they would volunteer to lead a study through the work group. Basically, you're opening a communication for others to say, hey, I'm volunteering to do this and I'm going to do it some form or other. And I'm going to lead it. So you're declaring it. And by declaring it, you are posting the target cohort IDs from the OHDSI Phenotype Library. So if you have the major cardiac surgery or HIE or whatever you want, aortic aneurysm, just say these are the things that I'm working on. I would like to work on these things for this. Okay, these cohort IDs.
Yep.
So that you reserve a spot. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's a good point. So I mean, major non-cardiac surgery is already in there because it's one of the targets for how often, but the aortic disease, like different aortic disease is one, and HIE, even though they were worked on in Phenotype February, like I don't think those haven't naturally, they haven't gone in there because we haven't actually kind of laid out a forum post in that way.
Right.
So I can put that together.
Yeah. So if you, I don't mind putting them into the library if you contribute it.
Yeah.
And once it's in the library, it's available. So. Yep. So first, even if you declare saying I would like to work on this, but I noticed that these are not in the library, and I'll make a further forum post. I made a forum post here and here to add it to the library.
Yeah.
And once added to the library, I would like to take a lead on this, blah blah blah. And I'll try to do it within a certain time frame, blah blah blah. Whatever you feel comfortable, just you're trying to role model it, and
yeah,
that'd be very useful.
Yeah. So let me. I'll touch base with Kaiser and Star, who we're working with in the HIE one. Mm-hmm. Star is a graduate student, so I might try to put her in the lead of posting that.
Sure.
And definitely we'll do the major non-cardiac surgery, and let me kind of take a little time early next week to kind of refresh where aortic diseases is. I don't know if I could push two simultaneously. But they're both on my plate, but I think either way that needs to go into the phenotype library. I just said that there's like I said, there's some dependencies in both those with some iterations in cohort diagnostics for actually kind of finalizing the paper.
Yeah.
So there's just in some ways major non-cardiac surgery, because the only thing it requires is a chunk of cohorts that are cohorts as features, and I can build those over the weekend. And so I'm pretty confident that will just work out of the box with cohort diagnostics. The other ones take a little bit of massaging. But yeah, no, I'll work on this.
Okay, perfect. And Andrea, I'll give you the cohorts. Do you mind doing a forum post to follow Evan? Again, the purpose is to role model for community collaboration.
Yeah, send them on.
Okay, perfect.
I want to come back really quick to the discussion about versioning of not just we weren't talking about versioning cohorts, we were talking about versioning concept sets.
Yeah.
I feel like there's probably even a few more layers to dig into there. And I missed the first little bit of the call, but as we think about those concept sets, those are all attached to pieces of data in the variety of databases. But if the data owners haven't updated their own databases to take new versions of concept sets released by folks like Loink or IMO or somebody else, just because we version it doesn't mean that the data owners have the most recent version and are up to date. So yeah. I think that there's so much nuance here and potential for folks who are relatively new to working with this type of data. We might need to put together kind of a detailed post on all the different places that data can get updated codes and what that might mean for a version, because people could think that they're getting the same set of patients in their cohort if they're using the same version of this concept set, but if their two data sets are not updated on the same timelines, they're definitely going to have different folks in those. We see that a lot in the community where folks will write a query and then the next version of Loink or the next version of IMO, they run the query again and they've got a different population.
Yeah, so this point that you bring up has been brought up several times in the OHDSI forums. I cannot find that exact thread right now, but Anna Astropoulos has led a survey and done an impact analysis on it. And I am trying to see if I can find it. Snowmed edition and versions. See that one? But as you can see, there's a lot of discussion on this exact same topic.
Whenever we post on versioning of the concept sets, probably we should link to that thread then.
Yes, I think so. One of the things that I feel one of the things that is a low-hanging fruit for our community is to write these housekeeping papers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So housekeeping papers are talking about fundamental concepts that recur in as a theme. This vocabulary is a theme, and it has various dependencies. There is OMAP maintains its own vocabulary. There's a team of people who do it all the time. They release things with certain versions, and they document the impact of those changes. Now, does everybody know about it? No. Does somebody who's new to the community know about it? No. But there is information about all of that stuff that's available. They track issues. They have teams of people working on it. There are ideas about how to handle these vocabulary changes. Some of them are good, some of them are not so good, and some of them are bad. But nobody has written cohesively about it in such a way that somebody's new can keep track of it, other than searching through gazillion forum threads, which I feel. I don't have the expertise to do that. I mean, I know it, but I don't have the expertise to do that. That probably should be led by one of these groups. But in the same vantage point, there is the idea of a cohort. Cohort is the idea that this work group, phenotype development evaluation, is intimate about. The idea of cohort is also a housekeeping paper. Every OHDSI paper talks about cohort, and I think we have an opportunity to write about this. And one of the things that I want to write about this housekeeping paper of cohort, because if you see, there's also just like the vocabulary, there's a gazillion forum threads on this idea of cohort. And the use of this cohort. There are software tools that are built on this idea of a cohort, including like what Evan said about cohort subset. And there's the importance of the start date and the end date and the spans of time, and why defining end date is important, and how this spans when we can use algebraic operator to say if treatment started before or after another treatment, like as one treatment is a cohort, another treatment is also a cohort, and then the spans of time, that those algebraic operators that allows you to write rich characterization papers, including baseline characteristics, treatment pathways, disease patterns. All of this can be done based on the idea of cohort. But this fundamental building block of cohort has not been described anywhere.
I know.
Right? And so it's a housekeeping paper that we need to write, and I want to take a lead on that and just get it done. And I want to start it around after the symposium next month. So would love your collaboration on that one. But I think there is ideas there. We can if we make progress on it, we can push the vocabulary team to also write a paper on OHDSI vocabulary.
Yeah, love that.
But it's but there's definitely a gap there. So acknowledge what you said.
All right, I've got to run for a meeting. So nice to see you all. See you soon.
See you soon. Yeah, next month.
Yay.
Bye.
All right, take care.
Bye. Stop the recording.